With the recent explosion of the sport of powerlifting, there are still a few IPF world records left from the previous generation that are set to be smashed very soon, as well as a few that I think are just very vulnerable to be broken in the very near future. So these are the 10 most breakable world records in the IPF across the men and the women's side. So I recently did a video looking at the opposite of this, the 15 most unbreakable records in the IPF, and I got a few suggestions, including from Mr. Sheffield himself, Pete Spence. So of course I have to make this video. Which records I think are most likely to fall as soon as possible. So same criteria as the previous video. I'll leave a link to that if you haven't seen it already, so I'm going to breeze past this pretty quickly, but I'm looking at official IPF world records, so the ones that were set internationally. I'm looking at totals and individual lifts from full meet, so no bench only, no deadlift only. And what I mean by vulnerable is vulnerable to someone else breaking them, not necessarily that same lifter. For example, take Jonathan Kaiko's bench. I think next time he competes internationally, he's going to break his bench press world record because he always does. That doesn't qualify him for this list though, because that's him breaking his own record, not someone else on the verge of breaking his record, right? Okay, getting straight into number 10, Russell or his 93 kilo total. So 918 kilos is what he totaled at NAPFs to break the IPF world record by Emil Krastev by half a kilo. Now, the reason I have this at number 10, which may be a bit lower than what some of you think, given the leveling up of the 93s and how there have been quite a few lifters recently who have been around this mark, most notably Will Ball, the junior, who I also did a video on that I'll leave a link to. The reason why this isn't higher is because I still think Russ is the strongest 93 in the world. He did this 918 after flying across the world with a stomach bug, so he lost some weight. He flew to the wrong continent, for Christ's sakes. I mean, he's still got more kilos in the tank than this, clearly. So, yes, I think this record is vulnerable to a few other people internationally. However, I do still think that Russ is the strongest 93, and given that he's most likely going to be at Sheffield, Pete Spence, I know you're watching this video, he better be at Sheffield. I think it's likely that he's going to break this record and extend it further before anyone else does. That being said, there are a lot of lifters that are close, and even some that have surpassed it. Like I said, Will Ball totaled 920, so he is the strongest 93 right now, and he's only 19, so you would think, even if Russ is the strongest 93 now and in the next year, a 19-year-old total 920, project that forward a couple years, you would think he's going to be well past everyone else in the world, totaling in the mid, maybe even high 900s, right? Potentially pushing 1,000. So it seems like only a matter of time before Will Ball takes the official IPF world record. Jonathan Kaiko, of course, is the greatest 93 of all time. 919.5 is, again, 1.5 kilos above Russ. Man, the battle of Pianat is going to be absolutely amazing because we've got some other top American lifters. Emil Krastev, 917.5, is the current world champion and was the previous world record holder prior to Russ. Gustav Hedlund, of course, former world champ, world record holder, and Sheffield champion as well, 915. And back to the Americans, you have Brandon Petrie, who's also in the 900s, and came very close to hitting 920 himself at PNATs with a deadlift that I'll look at later. I want to look at another breakable record that I think is going to fall soon. Gavin Aiden, 901. And this isn't even mentioning some of the other 93s, like Dominic Fuqua is also in the 900s. Demetrius Smith is on the verge of the 900s. Jamar Royster could be. So there are a lot of 93s who are around that mark. But yeah, I think the biggest threat is obviously going to be, well, Emil Krastev and Gustav, given that they're the ones who are going to be at pretty much every single international meet or every single world championships, because they don't have the meat grinder of PNATs to go through that the American lifters do. The question mark with the other lifters like Will Ball, Kaiko, Petrie, Gavin Aiden, and Russ himself is, can they even get to an international meet in the first place to be able to set these world records? Because pretty much only one American can go to worlds nowadays per weight class, right? But yes, that is number 10 on the list. Number 9 is Jad Jacobs' 57 kilo deadlift world record. So 231.5 kilos is what she lifted at Sheffield last year for the world record in the 57s. I think this is under threat by Joy Namani. So Joy Namani was actually the previous world record holder with 231. Or, well, 231, I think she did a British meet, so I'm not sure if that was previous world record. It might have been, but regardless, 231 is her best on paper in the 57s. However, at World Games, she deadlifted 240 kilos with relative ease. Although she did, I mean, there is a caveat here. She weighed in at 60 point something, so she weighed in between the 57 and the 63 kilo class, because you can do that at World Games because of how they group the weight classes. But still, that's 8.5 kilos above the world record, 3 kilos above the weight class in body weight. Sure, pretty significant at that lighter body weight, but deadlift doesn't usually get impacted as much by, slight body weight changes and decreases. And if you think that she's way off pulling that as a 57, well, she came kind of sort of close to doing that at Worlds this year as a 57. So this was her attempting 240.5, a deadlift that would have given her the win at Worlds this year. And that's how close she got it. Now, granted, she didn't lock this out. She missed the lift, but she still got it to around the knees and not super far off of locking it out. And, a few months later at World Games, she did half a kilo less pretty smoothly. Granted, 3 kilos heavier on body weight. But yeah, Jard's deadlift numbers have sort of gone down in the last few meets. I know she's not been in the best of forms physically nor mentally in the last few meets. I think Jad has hit 240 in the gym as well. So if she gets back to peak strength, she could very much hold down that record. But for now, I think Joy, the next time we see her at 57 internationally, I think this record is going to fall. Number 8, another women's record, this time Heather Connor and her 47 kilo total. So 435 is, of course, her famous world's winning total to upset Tiff and to break the world record. And this is, on paper, the heaviest 47 kilo total ever done. However, I think you are all going to know who I'm going to point out here as the big threat to take this. And that is, of course, Heather's rival, Tiffany Chapone from France, who was a previous world record holder. Well, actually, no, it was just Espinal, right? But previous world champion anyway, and held world records before that. I think even though Tiff has never done 435, I think 434 was her best. Something around there anyway. 450 kilos is what Tiffany Chapone totaled at World Games. Now again, similar to Joy Namani, she weighed in slightly heavy, although unlike Joy, it wasn't by 3 kilos, it was by 0.1 of a kilo. She weighed in at literally 47.1 at World Games, which presumably she only did so she could preserve any Sheffield advantage. So, she didn't break a world record and make her job harder at Sheffield, which fair enough, right? That's how the game is. Don't hate the player, hate the game, right? I respect that. So, yeah, but regardless, I mean, the 0.1 of a kilo, you can't really make an argument that's going to affect the performance. Even at a 47.1 kilos, she's, for all intents and purposes, I consider her to be a 47, and 450 is 15 kilos. It's pretty significant at that, percentage-wise relative to the total. Pretty big increase. And I do think that Tiff's top-end strength is a bit more than Heather's. Well, yeah, quite a bit more than Heather's, to be honest. Tiff has hit 1,000-pound gym totals before. We've just never seen that on the platform until World Games. And Heather, I think, she took a big leap in her total already to get to 435. And it came courtesy of a huge Hail Mary deadlift, which I don't know how many more kilos she can really add to that. Whereas Tiff has, still quite a few more kilos on a squat and bench, and maybe even a deadlift. So I think Tiff, we are going to see this rematch at Sheffield that is confirmed, Heather v Tiff. And I think Tiff seems to be the favorite. And I definitely think she's going to walk away with the world record. That could be pretty significantly higher than that 435. And of course, there's Jess Espinal as well, 433.5, previous world record holder. She's also in the mix there. Potentially could be Heather. She hasn't been competing for a while, but hopefully she comes back soon and we see her challenge the other two as well. Number 7, Brittany Schlater's 84 plus kilo total. So 737.5 is the total that she put up at Worlds this year on her way to beating her eternal rival Sunita Mulu, who is, of course, what I'm going to talk about after this. But yeah, this was the world record. World's winning total 737.5 is crazy, and you can see the lifts there. Absolute grinder off a squat, and yeah, pretty awesome bench and pull there as well. And like I mentioned, Sunita is her rival. That back and forth has been incredible between Sunita and Britt. They've pretty much traded, Sunita wins, then Britt wins, then Sunita wins, then Britt wins, pretty much since World 2023. It's like the last over 2 years now. They've been going back and forth, and it's been amazing to watch. Sunita had the previous world record, 7:35.5, that she did at Euros this year. However, the reason why I think this is on the threat, it might not seem like it on paper because, they're going back and forth. Who's stronger? Britt, Sunita, their totals are very similar. So you might think this is like a 50-50. But if you're looking at top end strength, the reason why I think this record is vulnerable is if Sunita puts it all together on and has a good day, she can absolutely annihilate this and put it way beyond the reach of Brittany, in my opinion. So if you look at World Games, Brittany beat Sunita, even though Sunita out-totaled her by 2.5 kilos, funnily enough, but that's how, the downfall of formula-based meets. But Sunita totaled 727.5 on a 5-for-9 day, right? She went 1 for 3 on squats, missed her third bench and her third deadlift. So if you look at the lift she missed, none of those misses were on, well, her second squat sort of was, but none of her thirds that she missed was on strength. She lifted every single one. They're on technicalities, and pretty damn borderline technicalities at that. In fact, I think some of these lifts, at the very least, should have stood. So she squatted 325.5 on a third attempt squat, and she stood up with it, and initially got white lighted, then he got overturned for presumably depth. I don't have a side angle. This is the bottom position from the front angle, which is damn near impossible to judge depth from, especially someone with as massive legs as Sunita. But 325.5 would have been an extra 20.5 kilos on her total, which she initially got and was just overturned. So if you add that to her 727.5, that's already 748, which is already almost 10 kilos or, over 10 kilos above Brittany's world record. But then also her bench, she missed her third attempt bench off, I think, 162.5, which is a 5 kilo jump. Now this one was a bit shaky. She locked it out, but there was a bit of up down or, bar sort of stalling in the middle. So I can sort of see that one, right? Only extra 5 kilos, no big deal. But her third deadlift, 275, was 10 kilos above her second of 265. And again, to me, it looked pretty damn good. It got, I'm pretty sure it got red lighted for soft lockout. Again, I only have the front angle here. I don't have the side view angle, which kind of makes it impossible to judge. But from what I can see, it looked pretty damn good and pretty similar to her seconds, which means if you give her the extra 10 kilos to a deadlift, that would put her at, what's that, 758? Yeah, 758 kilos if you give her that third squat and third deadlift, which I think you probably should have, right? Which is 20 plus kilos above Brittany's record. Not to mention if you do the 5 kilo bench increase, right? That's a 763 total that she actually lifted, just not fully to technical standards on that day. And the thing is, Sunita sort of had these issues. We saw at Worlds as well, issues with her locking out her pull. But it's only a matter of time, you would think, before she puts this together, given that it's not a strength issue, right? It's almost like the Jesus Olivares deadlift issue, who I'll talk about in a second, actually. But yeah, I think it's inevitable that eventually Sunita puts together this day and totals in the 750s, potentially even 760. And as strong as Brittany is, I don't think she's 750, 760 strong. Not yet, anyway. So I think Sunita puts that together, whether that's at next Sheffield or whenever it is. I think she's potentially going to hang on to that record for a bit longer than how long it's been bouncing back and forth between the two at the moment. All right, keeping with the super heavyweight theme, the 120 plus kilo deadlift world record held by Timur Semkaradze, 411 kilos, is the heaviest ever raw tested deadlift. 411, he did that last year at, I think it was Junior Worlds. And of course, Timur has since dropped down weight classes, and his deadlift still pretty damn strong. What did he pull? Like 390, 395 or something like that at World Games to win. But the big threat to this is, of course, Jesus Olivares, who has pulled 410 in a meet before. That was, of course, at the inaugural Sheffield, which he ended up winning with that legendary 11:52.5 performance. And since then, he's deadlifted over this in training multiple times, way over this in training. He's attempted over this in competition a few times, right, to break this world record held by Timur at Sheffield. And the issue with Jesus always is never strength. It's always grip / soft lockout, soft knees, right? Like I said, he's attempted this and he's lifted it a bunch of times. It just hasn't been given to him, similar to the, Sunita's issue that I sort of mentioned, that final sort of bit of that lockout / grip kind of going soft knees. But the most Jesus has ever done successfully that I've seen is a 426 deadlift in training. This was a while ago now. This was actually in the lead up to Sheffield 2024, where Jesus was coming in as a pretty hot favorite. But 426 is crazy. And recently, Jesus' deadlift, he's really been trying to clean it up in training. It's been looking pretty damn good. We've seen him rep in the high 300s. We've seen multiple pulls over 400, even in the lead up to Worlds this year. I know at Worlds this year, he had a pretty terrible deadlift session, but, he got picked up a bit of a niggle after the squats, and it wasn't exactly the best environment in that crazy hot stadium or crazy hot arena in Germany, also I heard. But yeah, he's been doing a bunch of work on his dads, and it seems like it's getting better. In fact, he recently pulled 420 in the gym, and it's about the cleanest 900 pound plus pull I've seen him do. Cleaner than that 426 that he did a year or whatever ago. So yeah, again, similar to Sunita, I think it's just a matter of time before Jesus finally breaks his deadlift curse and gets this done. Like I said, he has the strength for way more than this. And Timo, especially now in his lower bodyweight state, I don't think is really going to threaten this record again. And especially not if Jesus ups it to 415, 420 like I think he's capable of. I think that record will probably stand for quite a while because no one else is really that close. And number 5 is Owen Hubbard's 83 kilo bench press world record, 218.5. This was done all the way back in 2019. So unlike some of the previous records on this list that were done recently still by lifters currently lifting, this one was done over half a decade ago by Owen Hubbard, who no longer actively competes at the top level anyway. 218.5. This was obviously before the elbow depth rule came into action, so you can see that probably would not have passed elbow depth nowadays. But it's about time this record gets beaten, and it is on the verge of doing so. In fact, Taylor Atwood has matched this world record at the NAPF meet he recently did, benching 218.5 also. I don't know why he didn't just chip it for 219. Although watching it, his 218.5 was actually quite the grind. So, I remember watching this thinking, why the hell would you load exactly the same? Just take the half kilo world record. But to be honest, half kilo probably could have made the difference because of how slow and how much of a grind that 218.5 was. So, probably was the right call. But yeah, I think it's a matter of time before Taylor adds half a kilo to his bench and manages to break that. However, the other lifter who's in contention is the strongest 83 in the world right now, Joe Borenstein, who benched 218 kilos himself at PA Nats, so only half a kilo below the world record. He benched slightly less at Worlds on the international stage, but he's also benched 220 kilos in training a couple times now. He did it back at the start of this year when he put up his 900 kilo gym total that blew everyone's minds, way before he talked about putting it on the platform. And then he recently also benched 220 in prep for the Ivanka's Houston meet, which is coming up soon, and we'll see if he can match that number on the platform. And yeah, Joey B, I think, is going to be competing internationally for many years to come, so he's going to have plenty of opportunities to break this record, and I think he's going to definitely do it at Sheffield or at some point next year. Then there's some other strong 83 benches. So Sean Noriega benched 210 at PA Nats. So a bit of a bench press specialist himself, only 8.5 kilos below the world record if he manages to get to an international meet. Sean Noriega has actually benched more than this, though. He actually benched 217 kilos, only 1.5 kilos below this, at 2023 USAPL Raw Nats. The reason why I took his 210 number, not his 217, is because similar to Owen, this would not pass elbow depth. USAPL didn't have the elbow depth rule. So when Sean came across to Powerlifting America, he had to change up his technique, which only cost him 7 kilos, which is pretty damn good still for still one of the best 83 benches in the world if it weren't for Taylor and Joe B. You have some other strong 200 plus kilo 83 benches as well, but I think these are definitely the main three who could potentially threaten it. I think Taylor and Joe B, one of them, potentially both of them, will definitely cross this within the next year. Number 4, this is a crazy one. Jess Bittner's 76 kilo deadlift world record of 261.5. The fact that this is even on this list, not to mention pretty high up on at number 4, is absolutely insane and unfathomable if you had said that just a few years ago. This was done at 2022 IPF Worlds, and this was the winning pool to win just the World Championships and defeat some Polish woman by the name of Agata Shitko that year, right? Of course, before Agata became the Agata we know her as today. But at the time, this wasn't just a 76 kilo deadlift world record. This was the deadlift world record for women, period, right? For women across all weight classes, this was the heaviest deadlift ever done to that point in time. And she was a 76, so not even the second heaviest weight class, right? So to think that only 3 years later, this is one of the world records that are most under threat to be beaten just shows you how far the sport has come, especially in the women's side within those last 3 years. Absolutely insane. But yeah, the main threat is Agata Shitko. So Agata has deadlifted more than this as a 76, just not at an international meet. At the silent worker meet she did, I think it was earlier this year, where she hit a huge 76 total that I'll talk about later as well. 262.5 is what she did, and that is the heaviest 76 deadlift ever done in a competition. And she also attempted a 269 kilo deadlift at Sheffield this year on her third attempt, which she missed, after she pulled 260 kilos for the world record in the 69 kilo class. So in the 69s, a weight class down, she hit 260 and missed 269. And I mean, she didn't come super close, but still, that's the weight class below. And even when she did 262.5, it's not like she was a filled out 76. She was just, weighed in at what, 70 point something, 71 point something, I think. So yeah, the reason why I think this record is going to fall, aside from just Agata being the freak that she is I'm pretty sure Agata is going to go into the 76 kilo class moving forward, given that she's already smashed the 69 kilo world records 2 times over now, winning 2 consecutive Sheffields. It's actually above that of the 76 records, so I think she may as well move up. And of course, long-term goal of challenging and beating Amanda Lawrence, it would serve her to move up a weight class. So I think when she does, she takes this record pretty comfortably. But she's not the only one. Karlina Tongatea deadlifted 260 at World Games, the winning pool for her to win the heavyweight division of World Games this year, 260. Again, crazy to think that Karlina isn't thought of as a deadlift specialist at all, really. If you think Karlina, you're not going to think deadlift specialist. You're going to think huge squat, huge subtotal, very well-rounded, but not like a classic deadlift specialist build or someone you would think of as a deadlift demon, right? But the fact she's only 1.5 kilos below what was once the heaviest deadlift across all women's weight classes, again, shows you how far we've come in that time. Dana McNeil is another 76 lifter, 255, a masters lifter, still deadlifting damn near world records, so respect for that. I think she's attempted 262.5 as well, just not quite being able to get it at the local level. Cranen Warford also pulled 250 at PNAS this year, which seems like it's a long way off, especially at those top end ranges. However, she came damn near close to beating this at Worlds this year. So this was her attempting 262.5. Similar to Joy Namani at Worlds, this was a pull for the win to take the world title and actually beat Karlina at Worlds this year. And of course would have beat Jess's deadlift record by 1 kilo. And that's how close she got to locking it out. So pretty damn close, got it to the knee, got it above the knee, just couldn't quite finish it, get that last couple inches, that lockout. And again, Cranen, with how relatively young she is in the sport, again, I think matter of time before she manages to lock that out and add those extra kilos to break Jess's record there. There are some other 76 lifters too, super strong, who are creeping up on this record. You have Zuzana Mazura from the juniors, who's pulled 250, right? Laura Matalin as well, who's around that range. So there are a few getting up there. But speaking of the 76ers, number 3 on the list is Karlina Tongatea and her 76 kilo total world record of 620 kilos. So again, she did this at World Games of this year to win World Games. 620, which is a crazy huge total, makes her one of the best pound-for-pound lifters in the world, obviously. However, because Agata Shitko's reign of terror over the sort of middle weight classes, it makes it seem somewhat human, because Agata's 69 kilo world record is 628, so 8 kilos more than the 76s. which is kind of wild. And yeah, sort of same reasoning as the 76 deadlift world record. I think at Sheffield next year, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, Agatha makes it to Sheffield and whatever political crap is going on between her and the Polish Fed dies down. But yeah, if Agatha makes it to Sheffield, which she should, pretty sure she's going to be going as a 76, given that it's now a lower world record than a 69 kilo one is. And yeah, if she does 628 as a 69, what can she do as a 76? Way more than 620. In fact, she's done 635. So at that silent worker meet that I mentioned, where she pulled 262.5, her total was 635. And again, this was pretty soon after her Sheffield winning performance as a 69, where she totaled 628. So number one, she might not have been fully paid for this. Could have just been one of her 6 or 7 SBD days that week, right? And number two, 635, that close to going all out at Sheffield, and also not even going up in body weight, right? She, like I said, she was nowhere near a full 76. Imagine if she goes up to become a full 76, because she's going to battle Amanda Lawrence, she has to weigh in above 76. I mean, yeah, she's going to absolutely annihilate that 620 when she chooses to compete against it at Sheffield. And yeah, 628 is what she won Sheffield with, weight class below. So needless to say, as crazy of an athlete and as strong as Kalina Togantea is, Agatha Shitko is going to break this world record pretty much anytime she wants, by damn near however much she wants. Number two, Chance Mitchell's 93 kilo deadlift world record, 373.5. This was the pull that won him worlds in 2022, and he moved lightning quick. As you can see, they moved like an opener. To be fair to Chance, he has deadlifted more than this, not internationally, because obviously this is a world record, but he's pulled 383 before, which still stands as the heaviest 93 deadlift ever across, any level of competition. So yeah, he is definitely stronger than 373.5. That just happens to be the most he did internationally before he disappeared off the face of the earth, right? Which, again, I made a video on that I'll leave a link to. But nowadays, there are so many 93s who have either already pulled above this, just not yet at an international level, or have attempted to pull above this, in some cases way above this, and come very, very close, and or done more in training. So Demetrius Smith has pulled 375 before in competition. And he also attempted 382.5 at PA Nats this year to total in the 900s to pull for podium. And that's how close he came, got it to just above the knees. And recently in training in prep for Ivanka's Houston, he's pulled 380 pretty cleanly. So yeah, Demetrius Smith, if he ever makes it onto an international platform, is going to take this record for sure. Then of course you have Will Ball on his way to the 920 total. He pulled 375. Then Brandon Petrie has pulled 372.5 successfully, the most he's done in comp. Pretty damn smoothly and easily too. Only a kilo below Chance's record. And he's come very close to pulling a lot more than this. So he actually attempted 389.5 at PNS this year for what would have been the winning pull to beat Jonathan Kaiko and total 920. But that's, yes, a full 16 kilos above the IPF world record. And it wasn't a Hail Mary outlandish attempt. That's how close he came. He got it to above the knees. That is so close to being locked out. You would almost call it a gym PB. That's how close he is to being locked out. So yeah, Petrie is going to smash this deadlift record when he next makes it onto an international platform, I'm sure. Then you've got a bunch of other lifters who are pulling over 800 pounds in the 93s, which makes sense because you have 83s who are pulling above 800 pounds, several of them. The 83 world record is actually above this, and there are several 83s who have done more than 373.5. So it just shows you that the 93 record sort of, is it's time to get broken basically, and there are lifters that are very close to doing so. But in the juniors, you have Ayman Ibrahim El Khalil Nawari who pulled 367.5. You have Emil Krastev who pulled 365, so he's not far off either. Emmanuel Olatunji, another deadlift specialist out of Great Britain, has pulled damn near 800 pounds, and he's also attempted to break this world record at Junior Worlds this year, where he loaded up 378 kilos and got it to around the knees. Again, given he's still a junior, still getting stronger, I think he's definitely got that in him. And Christian Eindokun, who's pulled 360, which seems a ways off now, However, at Worlds this year, he attempted 374 to chip Chance Mitchell's record, and he came so close to locking it out. His grip gave out right after that frame there, but you can see again that's locked out to the point where you would be comfortable calling it a gym PB almost, right? So yeah, so many lifters who have either pulled more than this, or have in the gym pulled more than this, or attempted more than this and came super close to getting it. And because the 83s are now out pulling this 373.5 world record, yeah, this record, there's way too many people who are strong enough to do it that it's just a matter of time. And I would be shocked if in a year's time this record isn't broken by several people, and or just broken by a lot, not just a little bit. Number one, this is an easy number one. Dennis Cornelius's 120 kilo total, 978.5. Now this was done all the way back in 2016, almost a decade ago now, and powerlifting was very different back then. So at the time, this was way ahead of his time. This made Dennis Cornelius one of the best pound for pound powerlifters in the world, and you could argue that this was the most impressive performance of that year. In fact, when I did my video looking at the pound for pound best performances of each year, I actually ranked this as the best of 2016, right? 978.5 was far above what anyone else was doing at the time, and since, clearly, because no one's managed to break this world record in the 9 years. However, there is a very strong caveat when it comes to this, and that is that Rondell Hunt exists and has absolutely been robbed of the opportunity through no fault of his own to compete internationally. So due to a bunch of political issues with the federation, and following on from that, IPF Article 14 from him competing in the USAPL, he has not been eligible to compete internationally until essentially, this year and now. So next year he'll be fully back in the IPF circuit, thank God. It's about damn time. But he's totaled way above this. And really, this is sort of the only reason why Dennis Cornelius' record still stands. If Rondell had not been screwed out of so many years of his prime in the IPF, he would have smashed his record years ago. But yeah, 1045 is what Rondell totaled. And given that no other 120 has beaten Dennis's number, the fact that Rondell is at 1045, like almost 70 kilos above it, is absolutely insane. So Rondell Hunt, the second he steps foot on an international platform, he is annihilating this record on his opening pull, and it's about damn time. But you've also got quite a few other 120s now. So when Rondell first did 1045 2 years ago, he was way ahead of anyone else, and no one else was that close to Dennis's total. So he was the outlier, right? Whereas now, in the 2 years since, there have been some other 120s who have caught up, including Bob Matthews, who matched this total at PNAT's last year in 2024. He totaled 978.5 to match Dennis's total. Obviously, not an international meet. He totaled 970 at Worlds last year on his way to winning. But Bob, of course, has taken a bit of hiatus from competing, bulked up, and has gotten a lot stronger. In fact, we've seen a 1020 gym total from him. And that's the thing with these 120s is, on paper, they might not have beaten or be, knocking on the door of Dennis' total yet, but in the gym, we're seeing some huge gym totals out of these 120s. It's only a matter of time before a bunch of them manage to go above 978.5 and get to that magical 1,000 mark that so far only Rondell has been able to. Although, there are quite a few others who have done in training, including Bob Matthews, 1020. And yeah, the Rondell v Bob showdown at SBD Austin is going to be epic. But you have also Nonso Chinye, who's done 965, who is also competing at Ivanka's Houston in just a few days' time. And gym total-wise, we've seen him put together a 985 gym total in prep for Ivanka's Houston. So we know he's good for more than Dennis's total. Joseph McDonald totaled 965 as well to win Junior Worlds. And again, I'm pretty sure he's done some bigger gym lifts on at least the bench press. So he's getting up there, and given he's still a junior and so young in the sport, he's going to be in the thousands before you know it, you would think. Etienne Elcher, of course, pulled up the upset to win Open Worlds this year. Again, he's done some bigger gym numbers. I'm pretty sure had some huge 400 plus deadlifts in the gym. So I think he's definitely capable of high 900s, potentially 1,000. Devin Williams took bronze behind Etienne and Nonso at Worlds this year. 960 is where he's at. And Joshua Ngoka, 957.5, runner-up at Junior Worlds this year behind Joseph McDonald. He famously put together his 1,000 kilo gym total at just 20 years old or something stupid. Him and Nonso both super young. That's the other factor, is these 120s, you have Nonso, Josh Ngoka, who are still juniors for years to come, as well as Joseph McDonald, also still a junior young in the sport. Yeah, it's a matter of time before these guys enter into the thousands on the platform. And I reckon in the next year, Dennis Cornelius' 978.5 will be absolutely forgotten. And I mean that in the best of ways. I mean, respect to Dennis, like I said, way ahead of his time, and this record has stood for a reason because it was so epic. But it is time now for the 120s to level up and move past it. And I think we're going to see a similar effect to what we saw with the 83s leveling up, where Ross's 840 was the mark for so long. Then we saw a leveling up, and now 840 is not the top pack of 83s. I think it's going to be similar with the 120s in the next year. But there you have it, the 10 most vulnerable world records in the IPF that I think will be broken very soon. Let me know what you think of them, if I missed any or if you disagree with any of my picks.